The sea has always been the first storyteller. Its voice hums softly in the dark, a rhythm older than the moonlight that touches its surface. You listen, standing at the edge of a quiet shore. The air is cool, the waves gentle, the world hushed, as if waiting for something to be remembered. Beneath the water's slow breathing lies a silence thick with memory. It is said that the ocean keeps what the earth forgets. Cities swallowed by storms, names erased by salt and time. You close your eyes and imagine the world before the world you know, when continents were still shifting and the sea had not yet claimed its secrets. As the tide laps at your feet, you feel yourself drifting, not away from the shore, but back through centuries. The stars above shimmer like ancient beacons, and for a moment you are both here and long ago. Down you go, sinking gently into the blue. The light fades, the surface becomes a memory, and in the deep, something calls. A faint outline appears, not rock, not coral, but the ghost of architecture. Columns lie broken, their patterns softened by sand. A staircase winds upward to nowhere. The seaweed moves like curtains in a forgotten palace. This is the first whisper, the memory of Atlantis. Plato once wrote of it, a city of harmony and ambition, where temples shone like sunlight and wisdom guided every act. Yet even wisdom, he said, can turn to pride, and pride to ruin. The sea rose, the ground broke, and the island sank beneath the waves. Historians call it myth, but the ocean holds no myths, only truths spoken in a language we no longer hear. You move among the ruins. Fish drift through empty halls. The silence is vast, yet it feels alive, as if the city still breathes beneath its watery grave. Was Atlantis real? Or was it every civilization that ever rose too high, forgetting the balance between creation and humility? The current carries you onward. To the west of Japan, where the East China Sea meets the Pacific, a stone structure lies beneath the waves of Yonaguni. For centuries it was hidden, until divers in the late 20th century stumbled upon terraces, steps, and pillars carved into the seabed. Some say it is natural, others, the remains of an ancient civilization lost to rising seas at the end of the last ice age. You imagine walking those steps, broad and silent, carved in symmetry too deliberate to be mere chance. The water here is clear and still. Sunlight filters through, golden and patient. Every line, every edge feels like a question. If this place was built by human hands, then who built it, and how long ago? Your breath slows. You can almost hear their tools striking stone, the low chant of builders shaping monuments for gods now nameless. But the sea does not answer. It only hums, soft and endless. As you drift south, the water warms. The scent of salt thickens. Somewhere near the coast of India, another city sleeps, Dwarka, the legendary kingdom of Lord Krishna. For centuries it was believed to be myth, a sacred tale from the Mahabharata. Then, in the late 20th century, archaeologists discovered remnants beneath the Arabian Sea, walls, streets, and artifacts dating back thousands of years. You hover above it, feeling time slow around you. Here faith and history intertwine, the divine made tangible, the myth made memory. The stones rest quietly, their stories written not in ink, but in coral and silt. The sea, once again, had taken what men thought eternal. You pause, floating between light and darkness. A gentle truth begins to form. Civilizations do not vanish in chaos, they fade in silence. No cataclysm, no scream, only the long exhale of time swallowing its own creations. Every few centuries the earth shifts its breath. The sea reclaims what once belonged to it. The waters rise and humanity begins again, unaware that under its very feet lie the bones of forgotten brilliance. You imagine the people who once lived here, their markets and temples, their laughter and sorrow. Children playing beside harbors that no longer exist, priests lighting fires for gods who watched the tide approach. And when the storms came, when the horizon disappeared into walls of water, perhaps they did not fear. Perhaps they believed the sea was taking them home. You glide deeper still. The water cools, the light dims, and now the ocean floor stretches like an endless plain. You see traces, a mosaic of stones, a shard of pottery, a pattern too deliberate to be nature's accident. Each fragment is a letter in a language the world has forgotten. You reach out, touch the sand, and it crumbles like memory. The deeper you go, the more you realize the ocean is not merely water, it is time, fluid and eternal. It erases, yes, but it also preserves. Beneath the waves lie entire chapters of human history, stories not lost but waiting. The sound of your heartbeat merges with the rhythm of the sea. You feel both weightless and infinite. You understand now that the past never truly dies. It only changes form, hidden beneath layers of silence. And yet, as tranquil as this world seems, there is a faint unease, a whisper that civilizations above may once again tread the same path. The ice melts, the seas rise, and the cycle repeats. The earth remembers what we forget. You begin to ascend, rising slowly toward the surface. The ruins fade below, distant lights in the dark. When you break through, the stars are waiting, the same stars that once shone on Atlantis, Yonaguni, and Dwarka. They flicker like ancient witnesses, serene and unchanging. The waves roll softly against you. You breathe in the salt air, clean, ancient, familiar. And as you drift upon the surface, a thought settles gently in your mind. Perhaps the sea is not a tomb, but a library. Perhaps beneath its silence lies not tragedy, but remembrance. The tide pulls once more, as if beckoning you onward, toward another horizon, another story waiting beyond the foam. You close your eyes. The sea hums its ancient song, and in its rhythm, you feel the world beginning again. You float, calm and curious, as the waterish whisper fades into wind and sand, guiding you toward the Cradle of Dawn, where rivers first learned to dream. The first light of human memory glowed where two rivers kissed the desert. You stand at their meeting place, the Tigris whispering swift and restless, the Euphrates wide and slow. Between them lies a cradle of soft clay, shimmering under the newborn sun. Here the world learned to remember itself. The air is heavy with heat and promise. You can almost hear it, the hum of hands shaping mud into bricks, the rhythm of baskets pouring reeds and grain, the laughter of children chasing water birds across the shallows. Civilization did not begin with thunder. It began with morning, quiet, deliberate, full of breath. As you walk the plain, you see small mounds rising from the horizon. They are not hills, but tells, layers upon layers of forgotten towns, each built upon the bones of another. In every handful of earth lies a century, in every shard of pottery, a name. You drift through Eridu, the first among them, a humble village beside a pool that gleams like glass. Here the Sumerians believed their god Enki rose from the deep to teach humankind wisdom and watercraft. The temple is small, barely more than an altar of mud brick, yet it carries the weight of faith, the first spark of order against the wild. The sun climbs higher, and you move on to Uruk, the city that breathed with divine ambition. Walls stretch for miles, built by hands that still echo in the dust. Inside, the air smells of barley and incense. Scribes sit cross-legged in the shade, pressing reeds into wet clay, line after patient line. Here writing was born, not for poetry or prayer, but for trade, the counting of sheep, the measure of oil, the debt of kings. Yet from those markings grew the idea of memory itself. You run your fingers across the faint impressions. Each wedge, each curve, is a heartbeat of the past. Cuneiform, the first written breath of humankind. With it, humanity began to dream beyond the present moment. Farther along, the ziggurat of Ur rises from the plain like a stairway between dust and heaven. Its bricks are baked by the same sun that warms your face. Priests climb its steps with jars of oil, their robes white, their voices low. From above, they watch the rivers glitter like twin serpents, bringing life to fields of barley, flax, and date palm. Every harvest, every flood, Every prayer was tied to their rhythm. You can almost feel the pulse of the land, the slow, deliberate heartbeat of a people learning balance with nature. They built canals like veins, carrying the river's lifeblood through miles of sand. They mapped the stars, charting the sky not for wonder alone but for time, to know when floods would come, when seeds would wake. Their calendars were not numbers, they were songs sung to the seasons. But even here, in the dawn of order, shadows grew. Kings rose and claimed divine right. City fought city, and the rivers ran dark. Akkad, the city of Sargon, shimmered for a moment like a sword in sunlight. An empire before empires. He united the land under one crown, stretching from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean. And yet, within centuries, the dust reclaimed it, swallowing its voice as though it had never been. You pause at the edge of a dry canal. The reeds sway gently, whispering of vanished water. The same rivers that gave life could also turn away, leaving cracked earth and silence. Perhaps the gods too grew weary of men's ambition. The air grows cooler as twilight settles across the plain. Torches flicker atop temple walls. A priest's chant rolls over the rooftops like evening wind. He speaks of Inanna, goddess of love and war, of her descent into darkness and her return at dawn. And you realize that these myths were mirrors of the land itself, life dying and returning with each flood, each sunrise. You wander through a marketplace where traders from distant lands once gathered, copper from Oman, lapis from Afghanistan, cedar from Lebanon. The scent of oil and honey lingers. The murmur of forgotten languages floats like smoke. Here exchange was not only of goods but of ideas, the first pulse of globalization, soft and human. A child runs past, laughing, holding a clay tablet freshly marked. You watch as his footprints fade in the dust, wondering if he knew that his laughter was history being written. The night deepens. Stars bloom overhead, the same stars they charted 5,000 years ago. They called them the heavenly herd, the field, the scorpion, naming them with tenderness and awe. To them, the sky was not distant. It was a reflection of their own striving. Each constellation, a story. Each story, a bridge between heaven and clay. You lie back upon the sand. The ground beneath you hums with the memory of millions, builders, dreamers, scribes, and kings. You think of Gilgamesh, the restless ruler of Uruk, who sought immortality only to find it in the written word. His tale, pressed into clay, still breathes across millennia. It whispers that no empire lasts, but the longing to endure never dies. A breeze drifts from the west, carrying the faint smell of the sea, and with it the promise of another river far beyond the desert. You sense a new current stirring, flowing north and west where another land will rise upon a single eternal river. The Nile waits, patient as dawn itself. You rise, feeling the warmth of the earth beneath your feet, the hush of stars above. Behind you, the twin rivers shimmer like threads of silver in the night. Before you lies the soft murmur of distant water, a different heartbeat calling you onward. And as you walk, you understand. Civilization was not born in one place, but in the rhythm of awakening, the same rhythm that moves the tide, the wind, and the heart of humankind. The desert cools, the stars turn, and far beyond the horizon another river begins to sing, a river that will teach eternity how to flow. The night fades, and the first blush of gold spreads across an endless horizon. You awaken to the whisper of the Nile, its surface glimmering like liquid glass beneath the newborn sun. It moves not in haste, but with purpose, a slow, sacred rhythm that has never ceased since the dawn of memory. Here time does not flow forward, it circles eternal as the flood. You feel it in the breeze that smells of lotus and wet earth, in the hum of distant oars slicing through still water. This river is no mere stream. It is a god, a giver, a keeper of life. As you drift along its bank, the world unfolds in perfect balance. To your left, the black land, fertile soil kissed by the flood. To your right, the red land and desert, vast and watchful. Between them, Egypt was born, a thin ribbon of green winding through infinity. You pass fields of barley bending in the wind, farmers guiding wooden ploughs drawn by oxen, their chants rising in rhythm with the water's pulse. Children laugh as they chase ibis across the reeds. In their simplicity lies something eternal, the same routines, the same songs, echoing across 5,000 years. Ahead, the city of Memphis gleams beneath the sunlight. Its limestone walls glow pale gold, and at its heart, the temple of Ptah, god of creation, hums with life. Priests in linen robes pour libations, their voices soft, their movements slow as ritual itself. You realize that here every gesture, every grain of incense, was an offering to order, to balance, to Ma'at. It was this idea that shaped the Egyptian soul, that harmony was sacred and chaos a sin. You walk through narrow streets lined with craftsmen's stalls. A scribe dips his reed pen into black ink and writes upon a strip of papyrus, not merely words, but spells to preserve a name forever. Nearby, a sculptor smooths the cheek of a statue, his touch reverent, as though awakening the stone to life. The scent of melting beeswax and crushed pigments lingers in the air. Farther south, the great pyramids of Giza rise like frozen suns. You approach them in silence, for no sound feels worthy here. Each block, each angle, seems carved not just by hands, but by belief itself. The sand around you glows like powdered amber, heat shimmers and mirages dance along the horizon. You can almost see the workers, thousands of them, pulling ropes, chanting in unison. Not slaves, as myths once claimed, but citizens building a promise to their gods. Inside, the air is cool and still. You step into the king's chamber, where light from a narrow shaft touches the granite sarcophagus. The walls hum with the silence of eternity. Here death was not an end. It was a continuation, a voyage to the stars. The pharaoh was the bridge between worlds, his soul destined to rise like the sun and sail across the heavens. Hieroglyphs whisper from the walls, tiny, perfect symbols carved with patient devotion. Each bird, each eye, each curl of a reed carries meaning beyond language. You trace them gently with your fingertips, and it feels like touching thought itself, art as prayer, language as magic. You emerge again into sunlight. The desert stretches endlessly, yet the river never strays far. It is always there, a blue thread weaving life through silence. Boats drift along its current like drifting dreams, their sails white as ghosts. You board one, and as it glides northward, you feel the rhythm of ancient time beneath your feet. The boatman hums an old song, a hymn to Osiris, lord of the afterlife, who was slain, scattered and reborn, just as the Nile floods and recedes each year. You understand then, Egypt's religion was not fear of death but faith in return. Even the gods followed the rhythm of the river, dying, sleeping, awakening. As dusk falls, you reach Thebes, city of 100 gates, where the temples of Karnak and Luxor pierce the sky. Torches flicker between massive columns shaped like lotus stems. Their tops bloom toward heaven, each capital a silent prayer turned to stone. You walk through shadows painted in gold, the scent of myrrh heavy in the air. Priests chant as stars appear above, their voices blending with the slow murmur of the Nile. Somewhere in the distance, a single drum beats, slow, steady, like a heart remembering. You realize it is the same rhythm you felt in Mesopotamia, though spoken in a different language, carried by a different god. Civilization, it seems, has one soul, only many names. You follow a torchbearer into a tomb freshly sealed. Inside, walls bloom with color, blues, ochres, greens so vivid they seem to breathe. Scenes of harvest, music, and hunting surround you, painted not to mourn the dead, but to celebrate life eternal. On the ceiling, stars shimmer in indigo. In this chamber, death is only a door. You kneel beside a small offering table, a loaf of bread, a jar of honey, a carved amulet of turquoise. The air is thick with stillness, but not sorrow. You feel the weight of a truth older than any pyramid, that remembrance itself is resurrection. Outside, The wind sighs across the dunes. You look back once more, the river glinting under moonlight, the desert breathing in silence. Somewhere a heron takes flight, its wings silver against the night. You close your eyes and for a moment you can hear the entire world exhale. The Nile flows on, carrying silt, memory, and the quiet hum of immortality. Its waters touch everything, the living, the dead, and the unborn. And in its endless rhythm you find the heartbeat of time itself. Beyond the horizon the river widens, and its whispers speak of distant lands where mountains kiss the clouds, and stone temples rise to meet the sky. The world shifts again. The desert sands of Egypt fade, and the sound of the Nile dissolves into wind. When your eyes open, you stand among mountains that touch the heavens. Clouds drift beneath your feet, and the air is thin, pure, and ancient. You are in the heart of the Andes, where the earth seems to rise toward the gods. The wind whispers in Quechua, a language older than empire, still echoing between peaks. Each gust carries the faint scent of stone and snow, of smoke from unseen fires far below. You walk slowly, the ground steep and sacred, as if each step climbs not just in height, but through centuries. Before you, Machu Picchu awakens in the dawn mist. Its terraces shine with dew, its walls, seamless and strong, rise from the mountain itself. No mortar binds them, yet the stones hold as if fused by intention, not force. They call this ashlar masonry, blocks shaped with such precision that not even a blade of grass can slip between them. You run your fingers across the cold granite. It hums faintly beneath your touch, the heartbeat of a civilization that understood the language of the earth. Every wall, every step seems alive with purpose. The Incas, you realize, did not build upon the mountain, they built with it. The world here was not conquered, it was conversed with. High above, the Temple of the Sun catches the first light. Its stones are curved to match the arc of the rising sun at the solstice, proof that these builders watched the heavens as much as they shaped the ground. Each sunrise was a prayer, each shadow a prophecy. The air itself feels ceremonial, filled with invisible hymns to Inti, the sun god. You walk through narrow paths between terraces carved like green stairways into the sky. Llamas graze silently, their wool catching the golden light. The world is utterly still. Only the wind moves, carrying memories from valley to valley. Somewhere faintly, you hear the sound of a flute. It rises and falls like breath, ancient music lingering in modern air. To the south, beyond the sacred valley, lies Cusco, the navel of the Incan world. Once its streets formed the shape of a puma, the sacred animal of power. Its temples, aligned to the stars, formed a cosmic map of both heaven and earth. You realize that to the Andean mind, architecture was not art, it was devotion. Stone was prayer, geometry, worship. You travel farther still, across barren plateaus where the air grows colder, the silence deeper. The land opens into a vast plain where Tiwanaku lies in ruin. Its gates, its idols, its monoliths, all half buried, half eternal. This was a city of the sky long before the Inca dreamt their empire, perhaps as old as the pyramids, some say older. You stand before the gateway of the sun, a single block of andesite carved with celestial figures and symbols. Its lintel bears the face of a god, arms outstretched, surrounded by winged attendants. Some call him Viracocha, the creator who rose from Lake Titicaca to shape the world. The gate faces perfectly east, greeting each sunrise with unerring precision, a calendar carved in stone. When you look closely, you notice something strange. The angles, the cuts, the proportions, all mathematically perfect. Yet no iron tools, no written plans, no wheels were ever found. How did they do it? The question lingers in the thin air like mist, not to haunt you, but to remind you that mystery is a form of truth. You walk among fallen stones, their surfaces smooth as glass. Some weigh more than 100 tons, yet lie arranged with delicate care. Even in ruin, the geometry is flawless. Triangles, spirals, patterns that mimic the stars above. It feels less like architecture and more like a conversation between sky and earth. Night falls suddenly in the Andes. The horizon burns orange, then deepens into violet. As darkness settles, the mountains fade into silhouettes, colossal guardians of time. You lie upon a cold terrace, staring upward. Above you, the Milky Way spills across the sky, bright, immense, infinite. For the people who once lived here, that river of light was Mayu, the celestial twin of their earthly rivers. They believed souls traveled along it after death, crossing from one world to the next. You can almost see it now, boats of starlight drifting across eternity. A gentle wind stirs your hair. Somewhere in the distance, thunder murmurs behind a far peak. The air tastes of rain and smoke, the same elements that nourished this land for millennia. You close your eyes, and for a moment, it feels as though the mountains themselves are breathing. You remember what an old Quechua saying once promised, "The stones remember." And you understand. Every cut, every line, every angle is a memory etched in silence. These builders did not leave behind words, yet their message endures more clearly than language. Respect the earth, and it will speak forever. The mist thickens again, soft and white, wrapping the ruins like a blanket. You rise, and as you walk, the stones beneath your feet echo softly, not with footsteps but with recognition. They know you, as they have known every traveler before you. The past is not gone. It merely sleeps, waiting for footsteps gentle enough to listen. At the cliff's edge, you look out one last time, the terraces below fading into cloud. The wind sighs through the ruins like a voice older than speech, and as you descend from the sacred heights, the sound becomes the whisper of waves, leading you toward another land, one where jungles hide temples swallowed by roots and time. The mountains fade, replaced by mist and the slow heartbeat of a distant drum. The next dream awaits, in forests where stone and vine embrace. The mountains fade into mist, and soon the sound of wind becomes the soft chorus of cicadas. You open your eyes to green, endless, living green. The jungle breathes around you, thick with humidity and the scent of earth after rain. Somewhere, a monkey calls. Somewhere else, the roots of a giant fig tree groan as they tighten their ancient grip on stone. You are standing before Angkor Wat, its reflection shimmering in a moat still as glass. Lotus flowers float across the surface like offerings. The temple rises from the jungle not as ruin, but as revelation. 5 towers, shaped like the petals of a lotus, pierce the sky, symbols of Mount Meru, the cosmic center of Hindu and Buddhist belief. The air is heavy, reverent. You step across the bridge of stone serpents, the Nagas, guardians of the sacred threshold. Their bodies undulate along the balustrade, scales glistening with centuries of dew. As you pass, you feel the quiet weight of devotion, millions of prayers still echoing in these walls. Inside, the light dims, bas-reliefs stretch endlessly, armies of gods and men locked in eternal battle. The churning of the ocean of milk unfurls in stone, devas and asuras pulling the serpent Vasuki to stir the cosmic sea. Their faces are serene, their muscles divine. Here, myth and geometry merge into something timeless. You trace a fingertip across a carved apsara, a celestial dancer frozen mid-motion. Her smile is faint, knowing, almost alive. You realize that beauty here was not vanity, it was worship. Every curve, every line was meant to honor balance, the eternal dance between heaven and earth. You climb to the upper terrace. From here, the jungle stretches like an ocean, temples rising as islands from a green tide. The morning mist curls around the towers, and for a heartbeat, it feels as though the world itself is dreaming. The hum of insects becomes a chant, the rustle of leaves, a prayer. Long before it fell silent, Angkor was the heart of an empire that ruled much of Southeast Asia. The Khmer, masters of water and stone, built canals that stretched for miles, turning the land into a living machine of prosperity. But when the rains failed, when the skies changed, even kings bowed to the will of nature. The great city emptied, its canals choked with silt, its temples claimed by roots and vines. Civilization dissolved not in war, but in silence. You wander deeper into the forest, where the ruins of Tar Prom await. Here, trees have become architects, silk, cotton, and strangler figs twisting through corridors, lifting stone from stone. A single tower stands half swallowed by a root, thick as a serpent. Its texture feels warm beneath your palm, the living embracing the dead. You can almost hear the earth reclaiming its own breath. A faint drizzle begins to fall, gentle and cool. Droplets tap upon leaves, then stone, then water. The sound is hypnotic, nature's lullaby echoing through the hollow chambers. You pass through a doorway half collapsed, and suddenly the forest opens into light. There stands Bayon, the Temple of Faces. 54 towers rise, each carved with serene visages, the same calm smile repeating, watching from every direction. Some say it is Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion. Others whisper that it is Jayavarman VII, the god-king himself immortalized in stone. Whichever truth you choose, the effect is the same: peace. Every face watches you, not in judgment, but in understanding. As the sun lowers, shadows stretch across the carvings. The stone glows soft gold, then amber, then deep bronze. You sit upon the steps, listening to the sound of cicadas rising again. You think of how empires, no matter how mighty, always bow before time. Yet here in ruin, there is no despair, only quiet endurance. You remember the words carved in an old Khmer text: "The forest devours the stone, and yet the stone endures." It feels true, in every sense. Because what is civilization, if not a brief light upon the earth, fading yet remembered? As twilight deepens, the jungle begins to glow with fireflies. Their small lights shimmer among the trees like scattered stars. In the distance, a temple bell rings, faint, melancholy, infinite. You close your eyes, and for a moment the centuries dissolve. You see the artisans again, bare feet upon scaffolds, carving stories into eternity. You see the dancers, their anklets chiming as they move through torchlight. You see the priests lighting lamps before dawn, whispering mantras to the river gods. All of it gone. Yet all of it still here, breathing through the roots, the rain, the silence. The night settles fully now, thick and warm. You rise and walk toward the edge of the jungle. The moon climbs above the canopy, silver and solemn. Behind you, the temples fade into shadow, their spires merging with the stars. Before you, a faint glow appears on the horizon, not fire, but the reflection of sand. The sound of waves reaches your ears, a distant sigh carried by wind. You realize your path is leading west, toward deserts where traders once carved their kingdoms in stone, toward lands where silence sings again, not through water or trees, but through sand and stars. The jungle sleeps, and the dunes awaken. The next dream rises from golden dust, the forgotten architects of the desert. The jungle's hum fades behind you. The air grows dry, still and vast. You feel the warmth of the desert sun brushing your skin, not harshly, but like an ancient greeting. The wind whispers across the dunes, carrying with it the scent of dust and salt, of stories buried deep beneath the sand. Before you, the horizon ripples in gold and fire. The world feels endless, a sea without water, a silence without end. And yet far ahead, carved into a wall of rose-colored stone, something gleams faintly. A doorway. A dream turned to architecture. You are entering Petra, the rose-red city, half as old as time. The path narrows into a canyon, the Sick, a winding corridor between towering cliffs of sandstone. The walls glow in shades of crimson and honey as sunlight filters through the narrow slit above. Every curve, every shadow feels alive, as if the mountain itself were breathing. You trace your hand along the rock. It's warm, smooth, ancient. The Nabateans carved this passage not merely as a road, but as a revelation. And then the canyon opens. Light floods in. You stop, breath caught, heart still. Before you stands Alkazne, the treasury, Petra's most famous face. Its columns rise with impossible grace, hewn directly from the mountain. Friezes and statues shimmer with centuries of light and sand. The stone seems to burn with its own quiet fire, rose in the morning, gold at noon, crimson by dusk. You step closer, your footsteps muffled by the dust. The facade towers above you, 39 meters high, carved with perfect symmetry, a harmony between art and eternity. Once it guarded secrets, perhaps treasure, perhaps tombs, but now it guards silence. You stand beneath it, and time seems to slow until even your heartbeat matches the rhythm of the wind. The Nabateans, masters of trade, water, and stone. They ruled not through conquest, but through connection. Caravans came from Arabia, Egypt, and the Mediterranean, carrying spices, silk, and incense. And here, in the heart of the desert, everything converged. Their genius was hidden in simplicity. You notice small channels carved along the walls, gutters that carried precious rainwater into underground cisterns. Even in a land of thirst, Petra thrived. While empires fought for rivers, the Nabateans made the desert bloom. You wander deeper into the city. Every turn reveals something unexpected. Tombs carved into cliffs, facades rising like frozen waves, amphitheaters echoing with lost applause. You pass through a colonnaded street once lined with merchants and musicians. Perfume once lingered here. Laughter once filled this air. Now only the wind remains, humming through the stones like an ancient song. At the far end of the valley, you find the monastery Al-Dair. Its facade is even larger than the treasury, simple yet solemn. You climb the long stairway carved into rock, step after step, until the desert stretches beneath you like an ocean of light. At the top, silence waits, deep, holy, eternal. The doorway yawns like a gate to another realm. You sit in its shade, the wind brushing through your hair. From here, Petra lies like a sleeping giant below, red walls glowing, canyons coiled like veins, the distant hum of a world that forgot how to listen. You think of the people who built this place, traders, masons, dreamers, who carved not just homes but hymns. They understood something most civilizations forgot. To survive the desert, one must not fight it. One must become it. Their architecture flowed with the landscape, not against it. Their culture adapted to scarcity with grace, not greed. Even their language, now silent, was once the melody of markets and mirages. The afternoon light begins to fade. Shadows lengthen across the cliffs, and the color of stone deepens, crimson to purple, purple to black. In this dimness, the carvings seem to breathe again. Faces and figures emerge in the moonlight, half real, half memory. Somewhere far below, a gust of wind rushes through the psyche, and it sounds almost like voices. You listen closely. Perhaps it is the Nabateans themselves, still speaking through the hollow of stone, telling you that nothing truly disappears, it only changes form. Night falls. The stars unveil themselves, fierce and bright above the silent city. You lie back against the cool rock, watching them shimmer. In this moment, time feels circular, as if you've returned to the beginning of all stories. The same constellations that watched over them now watch over you. You think of how every empire leaves behind a heartbeat, sometimes in marble, sometimes in memory. And here in the desert, that heartbeat still echoes, soft, steady, eternal. The wind grows gentle again, carrying grains of sand like whispers across your skin. Each grain, a fragment of history. Each breath, a continuation of their dream. You rise, slowly. The moonlight guides you through the canyon once more. At the entrance, you turn back for one last glance, and for a fleeting second it feels as though the treasury itself is glowing from within. Not from light, but from remembrance. Beyond the cliffs, the desert stretches onward, endless dunes shimmering under the stars. Far to the west lies another mystery, a civilization that worshipped the sun not as God, but as destiny. A world of sand that built with gold and geometry, Egypt. The dunes whisper goodbye, and the Nile begins to call. The sea was calm that night, silver under a patient moon. You drifted over the whispering waters of the Aegean, where islands floated like forgotten verses of an ancient song. Each wave that touched your boat seemed to carry a secret, a breath from civilizations that once shimmered here in bronze and fire. You could almost hear it, the hum of a forge, the echo of distant laughter, the soft rhythm of feet moving in a sacred dance. Long before the world had maps or borders, these islands sang the first great song of the West. It began here, on Crete, where the Minoans built their palaces not as fortresses of war, but as temples of beauty. Their city, Knossos, rose like a dream, walls painted with dolphins and lilies, corridors flowing like the veins of a living heart. You walked through them in memory, feeling the cool stone beneath your fingertips. Every fresco glowed with a quiet reverence for life. Boys leaping over bulls, women adorned in colors brighter than the dawn. They were people of the sea, artists of rhythm, their lives woven between tide and sky. But there was a secret beneath the beauty, a myth that time could not drown. In the heart of Knossos, legend spoke of a labyrinth so vast, even sunlight forgot its way. Deep within it, they said, lived the Minotaur, a half-man, half-beast, born of divine folly and human pride. Yet perhaps the labyrinth was never a place at all. Perhaps it was a metaphor, for the tangled corridors of the human spirit, for civilization itself trying to find its way out of the darkness. As you move through the halls of time, the air thickens with incense and salt. The Minoans fade into mist and another world rises from the mainland, the Mycenaeans. They were different, sterner, hungrier. If the Minoans were poets, the Mycenaeans were warriors. Bronze gleamed on their chariots and their blades sang of conquest. From Mycenae and Tiryns, they looked across the sea toward Troy, a city of wealth and walls, standing proud at the edge of Asia. The song deepens. Ships gather like shadows upon the horizon. You can almost hear their oars striking the water in perfect rhythm, 1,000 hearts beating in unison toward destiny. This was the age when myth and memory became one, when Agamemnon, pride, and Achilles, wrath, blurred into legend. Whether Troy fell for love or for gold, none can say. But beneath the ashes of Ilium, archaeologists later found truth hidden inside the poetry. Burned stone, shattered arrows, bones beneath the dust. It strikes you then how fragile greatness can be. Empires rise not in thunder, but in whispers, and they fall the same way. One eruption from Thera, one tremor beneath the sea, and the Minoan world began to crumble. Ash rained over Crete like a dark snow, covering the palaces that once gleamed with light. The trade routes shifted. The dancers fell silent. The labyrinth of time closed its doors. Yet in that silence, something new was born. The seed of Greek imagination. The stories of gods and heroes, of kings and monsters, flowed out from these ruins like light spilling from a cracked vessel. You realize as you drift across the Aegean that these people did not vanish, they transformed. Their myths became language, their ruins became memory, and their memory became civilization itself. The sea hums beneath you, low, eternal. The same tide that once carried Minoan ships to Egypt now laps against your dream. You imagine the sailors of old, following the constellations that still burn above you. Orion, Pleiades, the steadfast North Star. They navigated by light and instinct, never knowing that their voyages would one day become metaphors for human longing, the endless search for home, for meaning, for connection across the sea of time. A cool wind rises. You can smell the salt, the faint sweetness of olives carried from unseen shores. Somewhere in the distance a bell rings, perhaps from a church on Santorini, or perhaps from memory itself. The Bronze Age is gone, but its echo still lingers in every story we tell of glory and loss, of love and ruin. And as your mind drifts towards sleep, you see the Aegean once more, lit by starlight and myth. You see craftsmen shaping bronze mirrors, priests lighting fires to forgotten gods, and children tracing seashells in the sand. For a moment, the past is not gone, It breathes. The waves rock you gently as though history itself were cradling you. You realize that the sea never forgets. It only sings, softly, endlessly, of those who dared to live close to its heart. And as dawn glimmers beyond the horizon, you hear it again, that faint, eternal melody. The bronze song of the Aegean, the first lullaby of civilization. The wind carries you eastward now, toward deserts of silk and cities of whispering caravans, where trade became the language of the world. The desert was still, not empty, but listening. You stood at the edge of a golden horizon where the last sigh of the Aegean melted into the first breath of the Silk Road. The air was warm and soft, like an ancient hand resting on your shoulder. Somewhere beyond the dunes a bell rang, the faint chime of a caravan waking under the stars. You walked toward the sound. Each step sank into centuries. The sand shifted beneath your feet, whispering names. Samarkand, Bukhara, Chang'an. Cities once alive with color and scent, now flickering through memory like distant lanterns. The Silk Road wasn't a single road. It was a pulse, a living network of heartbeats stretching across mountains, steppes, and deserts. It carried silk and jade, yes, but also faith, music, and ideas. Every grain of dust had seen the passing of kings and beggars alike, and remembered both with equal grace. As dawn broke, the first caravan appeared on the horizon, a long ribbon of motion weaving through silence. Camels swayed gently, their steps perfectly measured, as if they too knew the rhythm of eternity. Traders wrapped in pale cloth murmured prayers to the morning star. The scent of cardamom and cedar drifted through the air. You joined them without speaking, one shadow among many. At night, the road turned into a sea of stars. The desert was an ocean, and the sky its reflection. Around a flickering fire, you listened to languages blending like music. Persian, Chinese, Greek, Sanskrit. Words became threads, weaving empires together long before maps existed. You realized then, this road wasn't built of stone, it was built of trust. Somewhere between the mountains of Persia and the plains of Kashgar, you found a small oasis town. Water shimmered like glass under the moonlight. Merchants gathered there, their faces tired but content. A young craftsman from the east unrolled a bolt of silk so fine it shimmered like captured light. Across from him a woman from the west offered a vial of Roman glass, transparent, flawless, impossibly rare. They didn't share a language, yet they understood each other perfectly. Trade was not about profit. It was communion. You watched as they exchanged gifts, bowed, and walked away into different directions. The air around them glowed faintly, as if the act of exchange itself released something sacred into the night. But the road was not always kind. There were times when silence turned cruel, when sandstorms erased paths, when empires fell, and cities were swallowed whole. You passed through ruins where only the outlines of markets remained, ghost stalls filled once with color and noise. A single clay jar lay half-buried, its design Persian, its contents long vanished. Still the road went on. Some said it was guarded by spirits, the wind of Samarkand, the echo of Dunhuang, invisible travelers who guided those who respected the path. You felt their presence in every gust of wind that brushed against your face, in every star that seemed to wait just long enough for you to look up. Then came the mountains. White peaks tore the horizon open like teeth of time. The Karakoram stood before you, ancient, impossible, magnificent. The path narrowed, and breath became visible in the cold air. Yet even here, life persisted. Monks walked barefoot between valleys, carrying scrolls filled with prayers. In one monastery, you found walls painted with scenes of travelers, their faces serene, their eyes full of distance. The colors, though faded, still glowed faintly, as if refusing to die. "Every journey," a monk whispered, "is a trade between time and memory." You carried that line with you long after you left. As you descended back into the desert, you found yourself in a marketplace beneath the shadow of a great city, Samarkand. Its domes glimmered like blue suns, its walls covered in calligraphy that spoke of paradise and patience. Music echoed through its courtyards, flutes, drums, the low hum of prayer. Silk from China, ivory from Africa, spices from Arabia, all met here, blending into something beyond borders. In a quiet corner, an old scribe dipped his brush into ink and began to write. "What do you write?" you asked. He smiled. "The road writes itself. I only trace its breath." You watched him as the crowd passed. Merchants, mystics, dancers, kings in disguise. Everyone was equal under the dust of the Silk Road. You realized that history itself was walking here, not in the palaces, but in the footsteps of those who carried the world on their backs. By dusk, the caravans began to leave. Bells jingled softly as silhouettes melted into the setting sun. The smell of burning incense lingered, warm, earthy, eternal. You stood still, watching until the last sound faded into the wind. And in that silence you understood something deep. The Silk Road was not just a line across the earth. It was the dream of connection, a thread tying the world's scattered hearts together. When you looked up, the stars were brighter than before. Each one seemed to hum with memory of merchants, lovers, poets, soldiers, all now part of the same endless sky. You closed your eyes and let the wind carry you forward once more, toward the next civilization, waiting beyond the horizon, a place where jungles breathed and pyramids rose through mist. The air was thick with green, alive, breathing, eternal. You drifted above a forest so vast it seemed endless, its canopy rolling like an emerald ocean beneath the morning mist. The sunlight pierced through in slender columns, touching the ruins hidden below, pyramids, plazas, and stone faces long forgotten by time. Somewhere within that jungle, the world once looked upward, not for conquest but for meaning. You descended slowly, feet brushing against roots as wide as rivers. A sound reached you, the distant call of a bird that had no name and yet felt ancient. You followed it through the foliage until you saw it, a temple swallowed by vines, its steps cracked but still proud. On its walls were glyphs, spirals, eyes, suns, stars, messages to eternity itself. The Maya had carved them not just to record, but to remember. They saw time not as a line, but as a circle, each age destined to return, each end a quiet beginning. Their astronomers watched the skies with reverence, charting Venus and the moon, predicting eclipses with precision modern minds still admire. But beyond their mathematics lay poetry, a belief that stars were ancestors, burning in endless conversation with the earth below. You touched one of the carvings, tracing its shape, a jaguar, a serpent, a rising sun. The stone felt warm, as if the story inside it still lived. In the distance, a city stirred in memory. You could almost hear it, drums echoing at dawn, the rustle of woven cloth, the soft chant of priests as the first light touched the top of the temple. Smoke rose from homes of clay and reed, carrying the smell of maize and incense. Children laughed in courtyards, artisans painted in colors born from crushed stone and flour. Then, silence. The jungle took it back, slowly, lovingly, as if guarding what humanity had once achieved. Roots broke through floors, vines embraced pillars, and the gods turned their faces once more to the stars. You walked deeper, and there they were, colossal heads carved by the Olmecs, their faces calm and eternal. Each one bore a different expression, warrior, dreamer, philosopher, yet all shared the same quiet knowing. Their creators had lived thousands of years before the Maya, and yet their art felt impossibly modern, their touch precise, as if guided by something greater. How had they carved these giants? How had they moved them? Some weighing more than 20 tons, across rivers and hills. No one could say. Perhaps you thought mystery itself was their greatest monument. In a clearing you found a stela, a tall stone pillar inscribed with symbols that seemed to glow under the moonlight. You leaned closer, and for a moment the air shimmered. You could almost see them, the priests standing around it, speaking the names of gods who once walked among men. Their voices were low, rhythmic, like the heartbeat of the earth. The air shifted again, and you were in another place, the great city of Teotihuacan, rising from the plains like a vision. Its avenues stretched straight toward the horizon, aligned perfectly with the stars. The pyramid of the sun blazed golden in the morning light. Thousands of feet ascended its steps each day, bringing offerings of maize, jade, and breath itself. And yet no one knew who built it. No king left his name. No inscription claimed its glory. It was a city made for the universe, not for ego. You stood atop the pyramid as wind rushed past, carrying the scent of sage and rain. From here you could see miles of symmetry, streets like veins, temples like organs, as if the whole city were a living being, its pulse in harmony with the cosmos. But even the mightiest heart grows still. Centuries passed. The people vanished. The jungle returned once more, silent but patient. As night fell, you sat among the ruins listening. The air hummed faintly, not from insects or wind, but from memory itself. It was the sound of thousands of lives folded into earth. You thought of the artisans who painted the walls, knowing the rain would wash their colors away. The astronomers who watched the stars, knowing they might never see the next cycle of time. The kings who built temples not for power, but for connection between heaven, earth, and man. Perhaps you realized their disappearance wasn't a tragedy, but a transformation, a return to the soil that had always been their first god. Lightning flashed briefly across the horizon, illuminating the jungle canopy, a vast, breathing cathedral. Raindrops began to fall, soft and steady, each one striking leaf and stone like a note in a forgotten song. You tilted your head upward, letting the rain fall on your face. It felt like the jungle itself was speaking, telling you, nothing vanishes, it only changes form. And in that moment you understood. Civilizations do not die. They become the foundation of those yet to come. The Maya gave us time. The Olmecs gave us form, and the earth gave them back to the silence that birthed them. The rain eased. Mist curled around the ruins, like a dream returning to its source. The moon rose, silver and full, and the forest shimmered in its light. You turned to leave, the path soft beneath your feet. Behind you the jungle closed, not in darkness but in peace. Ahead the land began to flatten, the air turning cool and dry. Far in the distance you could hear it, the low hum of hooves across endless grass. The steppe was calling. You felt the wind before you saw the land. A low hum, ancient, endless, stretched beneath the sky, and the steppe unfolded before you like an ocean of grass. The horizon shimmered with heat, the air breathing stories that belonged to no single kingdom, only to motion and to memory. Here time itself once galloped. You stand at the edge of the Eurasian steppe, a world that stretched from the plains of Hungary to the mountains of Manchuria, a boundless sea of wind and wild grass. It was here that the horse became history's heartbeat, and riders turned the earth into their drum. Long before the names of cities or kings echoed through marble halls, these riders, nomads of the sky, ruled a realm that moved. The air carries the scent of campfires, of leather and iron. You hear the soft jingle of bridles, the rhythmic breath of horses, and in the distance, the hum of a song that was both war cry and lullaby. It was here that unity was forged, not by walls, but by the wind. The Mongols called themselves the people of felt and sky. They lived in circular tents, yurts, built to travel, to rise and fall with the rhythm of the grass. Each morning the steppe shimmered with silver dew, and herds of horses, sheep, and camels moved like clouds upon the land. Life was motion. Stillness meant death. In those wide horizons, a boy was born who would one day become legend, Temujin, known to the world as Genghis Khan. You can almost see him now, a child staring into the vastness, his face lit by firelight, his eyes holding storms. The world he inherited was not peaceful. Tribes fought, scattered, betrayed. Loyalties shifted like dust in the wind. But within Temujin burned something greater than conquest, a belief that all tribes could ride as one, that the world could have order even in motion. The steppe taught him patience and speed. to wait like stone, to strike like lightning. He learned that power was not in iron alone, but in loyalty, and in fear, and in the quiet understanding of men's hearts. You ride now beside his growing army, tens of thousands on horseback, bows strung tight with sinew, each arrow tipped with silence. The hooves beat like thunder and the earth trembles, but above all that sound there is something purer, a rhythm of destiny itself. They move like wind over water, each rider a ripple in an unstoppable tide. From the frozen steppes of Mongolia to the walls of China, from the burning sands of Persia to the forests of Europe, they moved not to conquer alone, but to connect the world in their own way. You pass through Karakoram, the capital of the Mongol heartland. There is no marble here, no golden dome, only movement. And yet in this simplicity there is order more perfect than any empire of stone. Merchants, scholars, and wanderers gather around fires, Persians, Arabs, Chinese, Slavs, their languages weaving together under one vast sky. The Mongol Empire became a bridge across the world. Trade flowed where war once raged. Silk from China, glass from Venice, spices from India, all crossed the same roads now guarded by horsemen of the steppe. Even peace, in its strange way, rode on horseback. But every storm must rest. You feel the air grow colder, the wind shifting, whispering of fracture. After Genghis came his sons and grandsons, Kublai, Batu, Hulagu, each riding in his own direction, each dreaming of their own horizon. Empires like rivers split when they grow wide. Still, their echoes linger. You hear them in the deserts of Persia, in the markets of Samarkand, in the ruins of Kiev, in the shadow of Beijing's walls. Their banners are gone, but the roots they opened still hum beneath the skin of the earth. The Pax Mongolica, the Mongol peace, became the quiet thread that stitched continents together. For a brief century, the world was connected. Ideas, goods, and faiths flowed freer than ever before. It was a paradox, born from war, sustained by silence. You stand once more beneath the stars. The wind moves through your hair, soft as breath, and you realize that the steppe is still singing. Its song is older than empire, younger than memory. Perhaps the Mongols never truly vanished. Perhaps they became the wind itself, the invisible road between worlds, the eternal rhythm that reminds us that all greatness, no matter how fierce, must one day become peace. You close your eyes, the hooves fade into silence. The grass sways like an endless ocean. And you drift once more between dream and history, where the storm has passed, but its whisper still rides upon the wind. A faint light rises in the east, the dawn of another civilization waiting beyond the horizon. You follow its glow, your journey continuing toward the marble ruins of a city that once ruled the world. And so you drift onward, toward the fall of the eternal city. The air feels heavier here, thick with memory, with dust that once glittered like gold. You walk down a road that seems to breathe with ghosts, the Via Sacra, the sacred way, that once carried triumphs and tears alike. Marble columns rise like pale ribs from the earth, broken yet proud, as though refusing to forget the rhythm of empire. Rome, once the world's heartbeat, now a whisper of what was eternal. The city lies beneath a quiet sky, its ruins glowing faintly under the last light of dusk. You can almost hear the sound of sandals striking stone, of chariots rolling through the forum, of senators' voices drifting like incense in the air. And yet silence reigns. You are walking through centuries of breath and ash. The Colosseum looms, its arches carved by both triumph and time. Here crowds once roared like the sea, as gladiators fought not for freedom, but for remembrance. Every drop of blood was a prayer to the gods of spectacle. Now the arena sleeps, its sand soft, its roar a memory. Rome had once been invincible, the center of the known world. Its legions stretched from the misty isles of Britain to the burning deserts of Arabia. Its roads were veins of empire, its laws the bones of civilization. The eagle standard rose with the sun, and for 1,000 years men believed the eternal city could never fall. But greatness, Jani, is fragile, and empires do not collapse in thunder. They exhale, slowly, softly. It began with small cracks, the weight of wealth, the hunger for pleasure, the quiet corruption of purpose. The Roman heart, once fierce and disciplined, grew weary. Bread and circuses replaced vision and virtue. The Senate debated shadows, and outside the walls, barbarians watched and waited. You wander now through the Palatine Hill, where emperors once built palaces that kissed the clouds. The air smells faintly of cypress and rain. Each marble ruin tells a story of ambition turned to dust. Nero's golden halls are gone. Augustus's marble dreams lie cracked and moss-covered. And yet, in their silence, there is a strange peace, as though even stone understands that all empires must one day sleep. From the north came the Visigoths, led by Alaric, not monsters but men seeking a home. They entered the city in 410 CE, their swords glinting like cold stars. For the first time in 800 years, Rome was conquered. The eternal city trembled, but even then there was no grand explosion, no single moment of death. Rome did not fall. It faded. The empire split, east and west, like two halves of a broken sun. In Constantinople the flame flickered on, but here in the west the night deepened. You can almost feel that dusk upon your skin, the slow, beautiful decay of something once infinite. Roman villas turned to monasteries, statues to saints, temples to churches. The roar of the crowd became the toll of bells, and the world, for a time, forgot how to dream in marble. You cross the Forum Romanum, where weeds now grow between stones once polished by empire. A shepherd passes, his flock grazing near the ruins of the Senate house. Where Cicero once thundered, sheep now bleat softly. The irony is gentle, almost merciful. The Tiber River flows on, indifferent, eternal. It has watched every sunrise since the city was a village of huts. It carried Rome's first triumphs and its final tears. You stand at its edge, and the reflection of broken arches trembles in the water. Was this the end, or merely another beginning? You realize then that history never truly dies. It sleeps, waiting for dreamers to wake it again. The knowledge of Rome, its law, its architecture, its poetry, did not vanish. It drifted eastward, into Byzantium's golden domes, and later westward, into the hands of those who would call themselves Renaissance. From the ruins, new stars rose. Michelangelo, Da Vinci, Raphael, artists who breathed life into marble once more. The old world was reborn through memory, and yet standing here in the quiet of the fallen empire, you feel both loss and peace intertwined. Rome had to fall, so that the world could remember what rises truly means. You gaze toward the horizon, the last light fades, and somewhere in the distance, a church bell rings. Its sound is soft, like the breath of time itself. The wind stirs through the ruins, carrying whispers of Latin prayers, the faint rustle of laurel leaves. You close your eyes, and the centuries breathe around you. Perhaps eternity isn't about never falling. Perhaps it's about how softly you return to dust. You take one last step through the marble shadows, your path lit by the pale moon, and ahead, beyond the veil of night, you sense a deeper silence waiting, not of loss but of transformation. It calls to you gently, a whisper older than empire. You follow it beyond the walls, into the timeless hum of existence itself, toward the final chapter of your journey, where all of history dissolves into one eternal breath. And so you drift onward, toward the whisper of eternity. The night is infinite now, and you are floating through it. No more armies, no more empires, and only whispers. Whispers of what once was and what will always be. The world beneath you glows faintly, a mosaic of memories scattered across continents. You see the ruins of Rome gleaming like silver bones, the walls of Babylon crumbling under starlight, the pyramids of Giza standing eternal and still. Each one hums a soft vibration, like threads in a single endless song. You drift past centuries like turning pages. Time itself breathes, slow, rhythmic, ancient, and alive. The Silk Road shimmers again beneath you, not as a road of dust, but as a glowing ribbon of connection, ideas, dreams, and voices weaving across the desert night. You hear the faint laughter of traders, the ring of coins, the hush of poems recited under a crescent moon. The road never died, it only changed shape. You see the sea again, the same Aegean that once carried Minoans and Mycenaeans. It whispers to you. The tide remembers everything. Every wave is a memory, every ripple, a name once spoken, a dream once lived. You realize then, history is not behind you. It flows through you. You are walking archives of everything that came before. Every word you speak, every melody you hum carries traces of ancient hearts beating beneath your own. The stars above shimmer closer now, as if they too remember the songs of humankind. They watched when we built our first fires. They listened when we first whispered the word forever. And maybe that's what eternity really is. Not endless time, but endless remembrance. You see faces emerging from the light, poets, dreamers, builders, wanderers. They smile and then fade into the glow of history. They were never lost, only transformed. Civilizations may fall, but their stories become constellations. Their art becomes language. Their language becomes song. And the song, it never ends. You pass through moments that never died. A Roman sculptor chiseling hope into marble. A Persian astronomer mapping the stars. A Chinese poet writing love into silence. A child in the future looking up at the same sky, wondering where it all began. It began here, with whispers, with hearts that refuse to forget. You feel yourself dissolving into light now, not vanishing, but returning. Returning to the quiet rhythm that began before time. The air hums softly, a tone like the universe breathing. You are part of it. You always were. The cities, the empires, the roads, the ruins, they were never separate. They were the veins of one vast living being, humanity. And even as its chapters close, the story continues. In every artist who paints, in every traveler who wanders, in every listener who stays awake a little longer, just to feel time passing through their fingertips. You open your eyes, and the stars become reflections in your own. The night exhales, the earth sleeps, and you finally understand. Nothing truly ends. It only changes its rhythm. It only whispers. Forever. A soft pause. Gentle instrumental music fades in the background, the hum of the universe. And if you've journeyed this far, if these whispers have reached your heart tonight, then maybe, Journey, you've always been part of this story. Because this isn't just history, it's humanity. It's us. So before the night takes you into dreams, leave your mark upon this story. Like this journey if it touched your soul. Comment and share which chapter stayed in your heart. And subscribe, so that together we can keep walking through time, one whisper at a time, because history doesn't end here. It begins with you.